Welcome to episode 140 of The Corner of Knit and Tea. I'm Laura, also known as Fluffy K on Ravelry, Fluffy Kira on Instagram and Twitter. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, and that's where this episode and every episode show notes will be. I have an Etsy shop called The Corner of Knit and Tea where I sell my handspun yarns, and we have a Ravelry group called The Corner of Knit and Tea. We currently have two exciting events going on in the Ravelry group. The first is the Sock Along, which is for anyone to knit or crochet, or I guess that's probably the best way to do that, socks. They have to be adult socks. They can only be 50% started before the start date, which was May 1st, and we will be running until June 30th. If you are knitting socks, please be sure to hop over and join us and post a pair of your finished socks in the FO thread. We're already up to a couple pages of socks in there, and I'm loving looking at everyone's socks. There will be some prizes for that one. I will draw them early in July, so definitely come join us. And just a reminder, in order to be eligible to win a prize, you must actually join the group. You can't be a guest in the group. The second along that we're going to have starting pretty soon is Tour de Fleece, which is the spinning event that runs concurrently with Tour de France. And that will be starting July 1st and running through July 23rd. And in our group, the purpose is just spin. You can set your own goals as much or as little as you want on any device, whatever fiber. Just spin and enjoy the summer. So if you are interested in either of those, please come check it out, or just come check the group out. There isn't a ton of action in there, but we have a few good threads. So hi, how are you? It is Sunday, June 11th. It is hot out. We have sort of started summer here. I know officially summer doesn't start until June 22nd, but after Memorial Day and when the weather heats up, I feel like it's summer already. I had a good week. I feel like I didn't get that much done, but I guess I did. It's been a nice weekend. Yesterday I went to another Mrs. Wilson's Knitting Circle events. That is at the World War I Museum. And it started as to discuss the role of women during the war and in part what they knitted. There have been other topics since then, and yesterday was about all the ways the women contributed in the war, including what jobs they did, and both in the war or at home to help with the war effort or to replace where men were gone fighting. So that was kind of an interesting talk yesterday. And then I spent the afternoon knitting with some friends, which was fabulous. Yesterday was technically Knit in Public Day. We didn't make a big deal out of it because we knit in public all the time, but we went out to lunch and then went to a coffee house and sat and knitted for the afternoon, and it was delightful. I actually knit so much yesterday that when I got home, my hands were a little bit sore, which doesn't usually happen to me, but it was a good day, and then I did some spinning last night. So today has been an active day already. I don't know if I mentioned it, but my husband finally talked me into doing a 5K. He has become quite the runner, and I am not really interested in it, but I also know that I should take more of an interest in my fitness health. So I have started the Couch to 5K program, and I have been doing that for about a week and a half now. So I did a run, which is really a walk jog, this morning, and now I'm taping the podcast, and then we are going to spend the afternoon with some friends. So it has been a good week and weekend. Not quite looking forward to jumping back into work tomorrow, but we'll get there when we get there. So I hope that you have had a good week, and let's jump right in. Today's tea is a mint green tea from the Red Bud Tea Company, which is in Indiana. This was a gift that a friend put in a swap package, and it is delicious. I decided to make it very concentrated today. I just heated up a little bit of water and made super concentrated tea, and then put it in my Tervis mug with ice and just a little bit of sweetener so that I could have it iced. I really like mint green tea iced over the summer. I think it's super refreshing. So that is delicious. I had actually had that one before, so I really enjoy that. And as I've talked about in the past, a lot of people sometimes ask how to make iced tea. Usually I brew it hot and then pour it over ice, or brew it hot and then put it in the fridge to chill. A reminder that if you are going to brew it hot and pour it over ice, that is actually going to water down the tea, so you want to make it extra strong. And what I did, like I said, is I made just a little bit super strong, probably 2 cups worth, like I was making 2 cups of hot tea, and then I poured it over the ice, and now the ice has mostly melted, but it is delicious. So let's get on to the knits. I actually have one finished object for this week, which you won't see. I finished a hat this week, and then I took it yesterday and donated as part of the Mrs. Wilson's Knitting Circle. They also liaise with the local VA, Veterans Administration, and so we can knit hats to be donated. I had, as I always seem to have these days, an extra skein of green Cascade 220 Superwash, and I whipped up a Shire Stones hat. That is a hat pattern by Mina Phillip. I actually was a test knitter for her and did a previous one that actually was also in green, although a really bright green. But this was kind of an army green color, and I thought it would be enough interest to keep me interested in knitting it, but not, they ask for pretty plain stuff because I think a lot of their members do not want to wear bright colored or crazy patterned stuff. So it is a little bit like a broken rib. It is a great hat pattern if you are looking for something, but I knit that and then donated that yesterday. So that was my only finished object for the week. Otherwise, I have been working on whips. So the first is my project Loopy, which I am doing pretty well on. I am more than halfway through my yarn. On this one, the pattern itself calls for less yarn than I need to use for my yardage minimum. So at this point, I am winging it and just doing the pattern repeats and throwing in a few increases. As I said last week, I scrapped the idea of socks and went ahead with a Hilary Smith Callus pattern. It is called Appia, and it is a fingering weight cowl. It can be done in a small size, in about 275 yards, and then the larger size is closer to 350 or 375. I need to use a minimum of 400, so I'm just kind of probably going to go almost till I run out of yarn. This is one of her patterns that starts out almost like a shawl, and then you join and knit a cowl. So you will have a shorter portion on the back of your neck and then a larger portion down the front. These are super easy and wearable. It is a little bit hard to show you because it's bunched up on the needles right now, but it is a really nice variegated or kind of varying lace pattern that goes really nicely together. The yarn that I am using is K-Nerd in their fingering weight, and the colorway is Fired Up. It reads a cross between a peach and hot pink. It is actually yellow and hot pink on the same yarn, and so it kind of reads as peachy pinky, but I am super pleased with it. And I should be done with it by next week. Like I said, I probably have about a third of the yarn left now, maybe not even quite that. So I am very happy with it and just knitting along. So, and the pattern is such that I'm sort of, while I am winging it, there is a pattern repeat. So I can sort of just cheat with that and then add some extra stitches every so often to sort of keep it in line. So I hope to finish that this week, but that has been a pleasurable knit and a quick knit for this week. So, and this week, Sherry also announced Project 2, and I ordered some yarn for the second project, which will be done in July, and I ordered yarn to make Roxy a winter sweater. So you will be seeing that shortly, not quite yet. That yarn should be here tomorrow. And I can't start on that till July 1st. That is what I will work on. That is probably the only knitting I will work on most of next month, since I will be spinning for the Tour de Fleece. So yeah, this is the first one. Again, the pattern is Appia by Hilary Smith Callus, and I'm using the K-Nerd. So that is whip 1. Whip 2 is that I started a pair of socks. I showed you the yarn for this last week, and I told you that I was going to think about using the Mercury pattern, and as it turns out, I did not, because It was the wrong combination of yarn and needles. The yarn that I am using here is on the round, and it has her everyday fingering, but it is on the thick side of fingering. I feel like it almost feels closer to a sport weight, and so I've chosen to knit it on slightly larger needles, and the stitch count required for the Mercury socks was such that I couldn't, without making a really huge sock or a sock that was too small, I couldn't work it in. So I have a skein of sock yarn in mind for the Mercury socks, which will probably be my next socks. But these, I opted to go for plain vanilla. I did get a skein of navy stroll from Knit Picks for cuffs and heels and toes. I had a couple pairs of socks in mind, but it actually worked for this. It's so dark, it almost looks black. But it is actually navy, and then I am using the After the Storm colorway, which is this great colorway that has kind of navy stripes and then splotches of and speckles of all the different colors, almost like a rainbow after the stormy skies. So this is coming out great. I am super happy with this. I basically knit this yesterday while we were sitting for Mrs. Wilson's knitting circle. I have a couple more inches before I feel like the cuff is done, and then I will do a contrasting heel flap, and then I haven't decided if I'm going to do a contrasting toe or not. I think I'm just going to wing it and decide when I get there, but I do love this yarn, and I think I'm going to try and knit a pair of socks for Roxy out of it. And since I'm using contrasting yarn for parts of the sock, I should have plenty of yarn to be able to knit Roxy a sock. So these are my vanilla socks in After the Storm, and I am really enjoying that. I hope that I will have more of a sock done by the next time we talk. I'm really hoping that I will have this may be the last pair that I do for my sock along, which means that I would have finished basically 4 pairs of socks during the sock along, which is enough for me. And then I may turn my attention to knitting a few pairs for Roxy, because I have a bunch of half balls that I could finish with socks for her. So that is the second work in progress. The third work in progress you have seen before, and it is a long-term work in progress. It is something I pick up and put down at various points, and it is actually crochet. It is my Scrappy Ripple leftover sock blanket. And I worked on it this week and added 3 or 4 rows, and I had probably added, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, almost 9 rows since I last talked to you, so I thought that I would bring it. Again, this is a just a scrappy, stripy Ripley Afghan. And it is the Ripple Afghan by Lucy of Attic 24. It is all of my leftovers, and I am just really, really enjoying that. I have a bunch of new leftovers from recent projects. I Find Your Fade, a bunch of the socks that I've been doing, and so I was trying to put some fun minis in here. And I am just in love with the way this is working up. I probably only have maybe a foot right now, and it's probably going to be 7 or 8 feet long, because I would like it to be a big Afghan to like cover me on the couch. It's going to take forever, and that is totally fine, because what I find is that I go through a phase where I have a bunch of new scraps to put in, and I'm super excited, and then I don't have as many, and so I am totally fine if it takes me a couple years to finish this. I just sort of pick it up whenever the mood strikes, and I suspect I'll be working on this a little bit this month. So I have mixed feelings about doing it this month. I am participating in Stash Dash, and so I am trying to knit up yarn and get it out of the stash, and I do not count the yarn that is in this blanket now. I will, when it is all done, I will weigh the blanket and count approximate yardage from that. And so I do not count it as I go. It's just little bits and scraps and pieces, and eventually it will count as a finished object. So while I am working on this month, this is not adding at all to my Stash Dash yardage. That said, we're coming up on Tour de Fleece, so I'm trying to sort of clear the decks so that I don't have lots of knitting hanging around. I will need to work on my Camp Loopy project that month, and I will mostly be spinning that month. So it's one of those things where I don't want to start anything new right now, because I don't really want to have a bunch of things carry over into next month, because I won't be working on them. So this is one of those things that I can pick up and do a row here and there, and it's no big deal. So I might do more of this month. I might not. I don't know. We'll just see. but I do love it. Every time I pick it up, I do a couple rows with a couple colors, and it's fun to pick the colors, and it's fun to make it all like crazy stripey, and I just love it. So that is the third WIP that I have been working on this week. In terms of what I will probably cast on in the coming week, I do hope to finish Loopy. I hope to finish my first sock. That will still give me basically a week and a half to 2 weeks left in the month. I might try and do another charity hat. Possibly another hat for the kids. I do need to do Miles' mittens. I will need to order some yarn for one of Roxy's winter sets. She is super into The Legend of Zelda right now, and so I'm going to make her a Link hat and mittens, but I don't have the yarn for that yet, and I will have to order that. So I don't know exactly what I'm going to do. Like I said, there's a bunch of stuff. I'm dying to cast on a sweater for myself. Maybe like a lacy cardigan. And, but I don't want to do that yet because, like I said, next month I will need to get my Camp Loopy project done, and then in August I will also have a Camp Loopy project, and that is larger yardage, and so I sort of figured I would do a sweater for myself in the month of August. So if I start a sweater now, it's just going to be hanging on the needles until I get back to it maybe in September or October, and I feel like that's not the right way to go with that. So I'm spoiled for choice in terms of like all the yarn that I have, but I just can't decide exactly what it is that I want to work on next. Which I think is in part why I've been ending up working on this blanket, because I can just pick it up and work on it a little bit every now and again. So that's all the knits. Let's talk about the spins. Last week I showed you a braid of Hello Yarn Hummingbird. BFL Blue-Faced Leicester in the colorway Hummingbird. I did finish spinning that this week. It is greens and browns with some purples and pinks. It came out beautifully. I am super happy with it. It is still very wet, so it will not be up in the shop until tomorrow for sure because I need to measure the length, and yarn shrinks a little bit when it dries, so I want to be sure that I do that appropriately. But it has kind of a mint green and aquamarine and then dark pinks and purples and a variety of browns and sort of almost burnt oranges, and it is just so pretty. I will have pictures up on Instagram when it hits the shop, and so that is that. The next spin that I decided to spin, I loosely spin along with a variety of groups on Ravelry. One of those is well, this year it is 17 pounds in 17. I started with it when it was like 10 pounds of fiber in 2010, or maybe not quite that far back, but probably like 12 pounds of fiber in 2012. Typically, I spin anywhere between 12 and 14 pounds of fiber a year, so for several years it was pretty easy to make that goal. At this point, I am actually not in it to spin 17 pounds in 2017, but it's good to have reach goals. I won't be upset if I don't make it. Generally, my goal is a braid a week, 52 braids a year, which translates to 13 pounds of fiber spun. Some weeks I don't spin. During Tour de Fleece, I spin extra, so it sort of balances out throughout the year. That is me spinning several days a week, putting about a skein a week in the shop. That is a comfortable speed for me, and I plan to keep that up. Anyway, the 17 pounds in 2017 group has monthly challenges where they suggest you spin a certain fiber or try a technique. One of June's challenges is to spin a blend with silk in it. So I pulled a blend with silk. This is Hello Yarn. This is another Fiber Club colorway. And it is Polworth silk, which is probably my favorite silk blend to spin, in the Pebble colorway. And this totally reminds me almost of patina. It's got grays and a little bit of turquoise and a real light turquoise kind of mixed with lots of white. And then it's got all kinds of browns and golds. And so it is a beautiful, beautiful braid. This will also be headed for the shop. And if it is in your color wheelhouse, keep an eye out for it. And I am looking forward to spinning this week. Again, this is Polworth silk from Hello Yarn. I feel like I've just rushed through the podcast. We're only at 20 minutes, but that is what I have to show you this week. I guess since I had a whole bunch of finished objects last week, I just have a lot more in progress this week. I hope that you have had a wonderful week. Thank you for joining me today. If this was your first time, I hope you'll come back. If you were a returning viewer, thank you so much for spending time with me. And I will say to you, as I always do, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I'll see you next time. Bye.